welcome to another video. In today's video I'm going to do a sketchbook tour. It's the first one that I'm doing on my YouTube channel, believe it or not. And it is because right now, as I'm filming, I'm working on a book of my own work, so very exciting. And when you are seeing this video, the pre-sales are going to be up. So I'm going to leave a link down below. I'm very excited to work on it and to go through all of the work that I've been doing in the last 10 years, to be honest. So the sketchbooks are part of it. So I'm going to show you a bunch of sketchbooks that span over the last 10 years. So we're not going to see everything, but I'm just going to highlight the most interesting pages. And without further ado, let's jump into it. We've got quite a lot of sketchbooks to go through, but let's start with the oldest. So this is a sketchbook that I had as a student, and I actually torn out some pages and started to use it somewhere around 2019, I think, or 2018 maybe. This here is one of the very first ones. I wasn't drawing as much back then, and I think it quite shows. It was a study for a fox illustration that I was to make for my sister-in-law. She asked for a fox illustration or fox painting, and so I did some studies of foxes basically first. And so here is the final idea that I had, and I'm going to show you how the final painting looked like. She really liked it, and I have a print as well of that specific painting. Then I decided to study this book. I talked about this book before. I really like it. I can only recommend it. It's Drawing and Sketching Animals by Tim Pond. It's a great book. I'm just going to show you very quickly, but it's all kinds of animals and not just horses and dogs, which a lot of the other animal guidebooks are about. And yeah, it's great. Can only recommend it. And so I decided to kind of study the skeletons and that book. So I made a few of those sketches from the book. And it's really funny to me because I'm seeing these old sketches and I see that they're all a bit off in terms of proportions, but yeah, you have to start somewhere. These here are the sketches of my sculpture's Hope, which changed my life. There's no other way to put it. This sculpture, Hope, so it was a polar bear on an empty plastic bottle, acrylic plastic bottle, so it was a painting bottle. It was selected to be a finalist at the Beautiful Bizarre Art competition, and with this specific competition, I got my work in front of many galleries that then later contacted me, and this is how I started working with galleries basically. And later on, one gallery asked me to do something similar, so I did more sketches about polar bears, and I made Serene, which is mama bear and baby bear. Now when I see this, I feel like I should have gone with that, but it was the original photo, so I wanted to change it a bit. It was in conjunction with that one, so I decided to put it on this side. I wanted to work on threatened species from Borneo, so orangutan it was. This is the Sumatran tiger. I made a sculpture of that one. It's not my better work, let's say that. It's not terrible, but it's not great. I really need to rework tigers in sculptures. These are some hyacinth macaws, which I also did some studies for sculptures that I did. It's really a working sketchbook. Then we have these elephant studies that I made for a sculpture called Mother, which I really enjoyed working on, even though in the end I think they were too realistic and they almost looked like small toys that I bought, even though I made everything from scratch. I think I have a video of that one. I probably have videos of most of the artworks on my YouTube, but I don't think I've always shown you the sketches. Here are just some sketches I did with playing with plastic bottles and octopi. I really like octopi. They're really interesting to work with in sculptures because they have arms so they can touch and move things. Very practical. Here we have some studies of bats and a pangolin that was at the beginning of COVID, and I don't know if you remember, but there was a whole talk about bats and pangolins, and I was thinking about making an artwork with those, but I never got around to it. This here was a small study for a huge mural painting I did, but I really liked it, and so I just cut it out and put it in there. More studies about drawing and sketching animals, specifically the bone structures in mammals. I was thinking of doing a fox sculpture, never did one. Just some clownfish studies, And this is a study of a discus, and basically the discus produces some kind of milk that comes as a mucus at the surface of its skin, and the juveniles are licking it. So it's a rare case of a fish taking care of his offspring. I did read a great book about threatened species, and the kakapo parrot was one of them. So again, I just did some quick sketches and I was wondering if I should make a sculpture. Haven't done it yet. Here's some caterpillar studies and butterfly. So I would know exactly how they were built, and so I could invent them differently. Here we have a yellow-throated toucan. I collaborated with Dolk to make a sculpture of one of his paintings, and so I needed to study the bird first. And I did a second sculpture of Dolk's work, this one, and again I wanted to study the bird. This one was a wrinkled hornbill and tiny skulls, because he had tiny skulls everywhere in his painting. I really wanted to work on threatened species at that time, so these are studies, more studies about the orangutan. When I decided to start sculpting one on a plastic bottle, an orange plastic bottle. And then, since I was in the search of threatened species and Borneo specifically, I decided to make the Sumatran rhinoceros. These were actually studies for painting, which I did during a class. And I wanted the rhino head with a nepenthes, and I wanted to look like a heart. I've never really managed to make a convincing end result as a painting, but I don't know, it was a fun idea. And here's some various ideas that never came to life of a sculpture of a Sumatran rhinoceros. I really quite like this one with the can in between, so I might do this one at some point. Just a quick octopus sketch. This is my giant panda spread, and that was when I was working on another bottle sculpture and wanted a panda on it. So I decided to do some studies to be able to kind of grasp how pandas are basically and how they behave to make a sculpture out of it. I then tend to go in trees and stay there, and they then just fall asleep in the trees. Very cute. I do like alts, so some alt studies, but yeah, just studies. I've never done really anything with those. This is the second A3 sketchbook that I use. I really liked using those A3, and this one I really gotten into it in 2020. This is just a spread of surrealistic kind of shapes. I have a lot of writing because I take notes, so I'm not going to show you all the writing, but I do tend to listen to audiobooks or read books about natural history, and so then I want to take notes about them. Some sketches I did when I was working on my book series for my first solo show with Beinart Gallery with caterpillars. I was really into caterpillars at that time, so I was trying to figure out how to use them and implement them in my sculpture. I ended up with this one here and made a sculpture out of it. I remember that sketch vividly because it was at the end of a day that was rather shitty. I don't remember what. I didn't manage to work or something like that. It was just not a great day. And then I just went into this sketchbook and started to draw anything. And I came up with this tree swan and I made it a sculpture. And honestly, I think it's one of my better works till to this day. It was hell to figure out the structure and to use a proper clay. So much was difficult to figure out. The colors as well. I'm pretty sure I have this sculpture on my YouTube channel as well. This was when I was brainstorming for a show called Midnight Garden, and I was trying to figure out which night flowers they were, and then I got the idea of using a frog. I used a terracotta pot to make flowers grow out of it and have that frog come out of it. I think the idea was not bad, but I'm not so sure about the end result. It's not bad, but I would do it differently now. More book studies and book ideas for my show at the time, which was specifically sculptures on books. These studies are about bottom trawlers, and I was working on them for the 4-Planet Ocean Challenge, and I needed references for the boat to know how it was built. So I did a lot of online search and was just drawing any picture I could find. and also to kind of understand how they were built. This is the quick doodle for the end painting. I wonder if I have this one on my YouTube channel, I don't remember. Here are some frog studies, and those were specifically made for the Midnight Garden show because I didn't really know how a frog was shaped, so I needed to kind of understand from all sides and how they move, etc., so I could make it my own. This was a super fast sketch of an idea I made for a show with Arch Enemy Arts Gallery, and they wanted something Christmas specific or winter specific. I don't remember, I think they do it every year. It's their winter show. Obviously I needed to do a bit more studies because I had no clue how it was built. And this is the final sketch of the reindeer before I started sculpting it. I really like that sculpture. Some bird studies of the regent honeyeater, which is losing his song culture because the population is declining. And so I did that for also another group show, I think with Beinart. It's an Australian bird, and so I put him on headphones. Pretty sure I have a video of that specific sculpture on my YouTube channel. These are color studies for my collaboration with Jeremy Geddes. So it was a sculpture and it was cast, and then I basically added growth on top, and here was searching for different types of, you know, color gradients, etc. And I remember at that time I had bought the Turner acrylic gouache, the Japanesque selection, which I really like and love. And since those colors were already mixed, I was really playing around with different types of colors and seeing what it could make. And I was writing all the pigments down so I would know how to mix them, basically. So yeah, I really quite like that spread, to be fair. I think it looks really nice, very colorful. A tiny sketch of my painting of Brick Lane, which I know for a fact is on my YouTube channel. That was an idea with manatees coming out of a book. I really like how they look. I kind of want to redo that one at some point. Maybe not out of a book, but those tiny manatees, they're so cute with a different pattern. I think this could be, this could really make an interesting sculpture. More ideas that never made it to completion. This one was with an old phone and birds. It's a great idea, I think. It would be fun as a sculpture, but I also know that it's going to be a hell to manage the structure. A cutesy tiny bug. Some old sketches that I wanted maybe to use for a book sculpture, but never really did. This was an idea I had for the Year of the Rabbit, and I had those 2 plastic containers and I painted them in gold, and I wanted to have one rabbit inside and one rabbit outside. But yeah, I've never actually did it. But when I see this, I'm like, yeah, that's actually a cute idea. Maybe I should do it. I have to say, going through my sketchbooks has been so inspiring. I can only encourage you, if you're feeling dry in terms of inspiration, to just go through your old sketchbooks, because you might dig out old ideas and finally finish them. This sketchbook is special to me because I bought it in Prague in 2019, and it was a handmade one. I think they have a website online, but it's not the same when you buy it when you visit someplace. I'm actually going back to Prague this summer, so I might get another sketchbook if I can find that shop, because I really liked it. It's not perfect watercolor paper, actually not for watercolor, but it's very thick and so it accepts it well. It was in papelotte. I always call my sketchbook Le Sketchbook, which, I don't know, it makes me laugh. And I started this one in 2019, but I bought it in 2018. So these are actually made on proper watercolor paper, and I just glued them in because I was doing sketches. I didn't want it to be a loose sheet of paper, so I just added them in that sketchbook to finish it. This one I did when Notre Dame was burning because I was really shocked by it. But yeah, it's reconstructed now, so all is good. Some swallow studies, never did anything with them. So I was reading that book at the time, and I can only recommend it if you're interested in natural history and really diving into jellyfishes. And it was just a small paragraph of jellyfish breaking down an oil spill and how some jellyfish species could be useful for that. And I found it that fascinating that I started to make this little sketch, and I think I did it in the train. This here is a small sketch of a painting that I made later on, Babbling Tower, and it was made on watercolor paper, but I just glued it in. I think it probably was a loose piece of paper. Summer 21, as you can see. And this is 2019, and that was at Tempelhof, which is just near where my mom lives in Berlin, and that was made on site. These were also made on site in Tempelhof. It was the same day, really. I went there with my dad, and I just wanted to sketch, so I sketched it, and I originally used colored pencils, but they just didn't stay, and so I painted with watercolors on top. Here were some leaf studies because I felt that my leaf game was a bit lacking. That green is too punchy, but that's okay. I made this one in August 2019, so I was not as good with colors as I am now, in watercolors at least. And I made this when I was visiting my aunt, and I worked from a picture, and it was just a plant in her garden. I already had a thing for insects, so yeah, just some insect studies, some actual insects, and here I was trying to make them more realistic. I was really actively trying to look at nature picture to get inspired for my own artwork and to study the shapes of nature and then to implement them in my work. So these are what these studies are really about. Same for here. Mushrooms are here, and these are corals. And honestly, these things have become so prevalent in my work. I use them all the times, but simplified. These are some nudibranches studies with a common blue-banded bee. And here's a really quick sketch of something that I made into a sculpture later on. So often my sculpture, they start with a very simple sketch and then some more in-depth study if I need to. I really wanted to do a pink spoonbill at some point, but never got around to it. Some small studies of an orangutan with a plastic bottle I was working on. I really like to do that kind of stuff in my sketchbook as well. I just really like to play with colors. So this was made with my first bought gouache when I was in London in art residency. I just really wanted to buy some gouache after seeing the most amazing botanical art exhibition, and then this was me just playing with them. And this is much later. It's actually on watercolor paper, and I just glued it into the sketchbook. Some root study, and then some fish study, boxfish, jellyfish studies. I remember drawing those when I was at the art residency in London, and I remember specifically because I was drawing these while a ceramic artist was giving a course, and I was just sitting there and drawing those. Some insect studies, and this is gouache. I was really trying to play around with gouache. I never really managed to get into gouache all that much. As a main medium, I mostly use it as a final medium. Some fish studies in pink and blue, which inspired the overfishing one with the bottom trawler, and you've seen the studies in the other sketchbook. I tend to keep several sketchbooks at once. A hummingbird. I stumbled upon that picture, I just wanted to draw it. And this here I thought was just really cute. It looked like a caterpillar, but it was just made out of birds. And I've been wanting to do a sculpture on that theme, you know, mixing the idea of a caterpillar but made out of tiny birds, but never got around to it. More insects, plants, and bird studies. I was really trying to study the new materials I had, so this was me playing with acrylic gouache and what you could paint or how you could draw and paint on top. More of the reindeer study that I showed you in the other sketchbook that were really useful to me when I started to sculpt it. That's actually something I did for a botanical illustration class with Schermergram Botanical Art. It was still during COVID, and I've been following that botanical illustrator for a while, and she started doing the class and I didn't hesitate too long, and it really opened my mind to new possibilities, so I really liked it. It was very hard though. A friend of mine told me about the Koval sketchbooks that are made out of cotton paper, and I bought two, pretty expensive to be honest. I think at that time they were a bit more affordable, but now they're really expensive. They're handmade, so I'm not complaining. I think the price is justified, but you do need to have some money to buy them. And at that time I was really trying to get into a sketchbook habit. So here are the first two studies of forest I did. I remember doing these with the Artsy Oubliette handmade watercolor paints. So it was really like, I was really buying way too many materials at that time and trying them all out. It was fun though, I really enjoyed it. More forest and tree studies. I don't know. This is nice, but this I don't know. Oh yeah, at that point I was thinking of doing an anteater as a sculpture, but never came around to it. I thought the tail looked a bit like a feather. This was a painting from a real life place that we always walked by, and I really liked that door, etc. And I was just trying out colors, and I also, it was one of the first times I used colored ink as a drawing. It was pink ink. I really don't like it though, and I still don't like it now. Sometimes, you know, you do something and you don't like it, but later you do, and I think it's just too over the place. This was when I first bought acrylic gouache just to try out, and I was amazed, and honestly it has changed my workflow because now I use Turner acrylic gouache for all of my sculptures, almost exclusively with gold and so flat, because sadly the Turner acrylic gouache, the reds and the yellows, they don't always have the most light fast pigments. I was just trying out what could go on acrylic gouache here. This was a painting that I did from a friend's place, so it's the view from her kitchen. She lives in Paris, and I just added a lot of growth. I think it's like, nah, it's not great, it's not bad, it definitely could be better. These were studies that I made in Berlin, and it was in the Senckenberg Museum. It's a natural history museum. And this is a stuffed bird, an ocellated turkey. I just really like the colors. Those are the actual colors and it really looks like it. At that point I was trying granulating watercolors and I was trying to see how to make them work. And this one I actually really like. It's from a picture I took when we went for a walk nearby where I live. This is a mimosa tree and it was a stormy weather, and this is when I did this, and to this day I tend to use that bluish black granulating watercolor for clouds and stuff like that. I think it works really nicely. This was inspired by a show that I saw, and I just liked a specific combination of colors, and so I tried to recreate that. I don't know if I succeeded it, but that was kind of the idea. This was just for fun, doodling leaves. Nothing special. And then I did a lot of color studies, mostly to finish this specific sketchbook because I didn't like it. So this specific sketchbook is not 100% cotton. I think it's like 25% cotton, and I really had a hard time working with it because, as you might know, cellulose paper tends to, the water tends to stay on top of the paper, and so I don't know, the way you work on it is not as easy, and it's hot pressed. So I like the hot pressed part. I don't like the 25% part. And so I wanted to finish the sketchbook. And so I did just some color studies using just 3 colors and, you know, seeing what colors would come out. The blue is a turquoise mixture of PB15 colon 3 and PG7, so phthalo blue and phthalo green blue shade. Then we have a quinacridone red, PV19, and then we have PY110. This actually prompted me to do a full artwork because I really liked the color scheme, and it's a mixture of a green, a cobalt deep green, a quinacridone purple, and a yellow ochre, and I just really liked how the colors flowed. This is another one, and I used PY110, quinacridone magenta, PR122, and ultramarine blue, PB29. If you like colors, I can only encourage you to do that. And since I really liked working with that cobalt green deep, I made something else, and this time the purple I mixed myself. It's a mixture of ultramarine blue and quinacridone magenta. And again, the PY1110, and another color study. This time with a light pink that is mixed with quinacridone red, PR209, quinacridone rust, PO48, and then edantron blue, PB60. And this is the other sketchbook from Koval's sketchbook, which I started in 2020 and finished in 2023. And this one is 100% cotton, so I like that part, but it's cold pressed and I didn't like that part. This is something I did when I was trying the Mr. Graham watercolors. So I had bought a set at that time, and basically I did a wash with all kinds of stuff, and I went back in with indigo ink and drew on top. I think it looks really nice. It's kind of classical, traditional, but I had a lot of fun working on it. And then we really dive into bird studies. I did a lot of bird studies in that book. So yeah, that's just bird studies. A lot of bird studies that I then used for paintings. Some more artsy oubliette handmade paints. I really was buying way too much supplies at that time. A cicada, more bird studies, and the magnolia study. I actually have a small video about that one when I was just using pink supplies. I just had bought the pink ink at that point, which I've never really managed to make work to use pink ink as drawing base. I think it's really difficult. Color studies. This is a study I made for a mural painting that I did locally, and it was a huge artichoke thistle that I saw during a walk, and I did a painting out of it. Well, I did a picture first and then I did the painting, and I decided it would be my mural painting. And then I did a lot of insect studies to go with it. So some bumblebees. More color studies. I really do like color studies. It's just, for me, it's very fun. For me, color studies are really relaxing. Butterfly studies for that mural painting. And so this was the sketch of that mural painting, because the background was going to be black and we would paint on top of it. And it was human size. And we had only a day to make it, so I was super stressed, and it was super hot that day as well. But yeah, I had quite a lot of fun painting it. It was nice. Some bird studies. Specifically an oyster catcher, I think that's how you call it in English, oyster catcher. I saw one when I was at the beach and was like, what is this bird? What is happening? And so I searched online and then I found it. Very interesting birds. And I was just trying to test out things with solvent and colored pencils. Another bird that you see at the beach quite often, a double spread study of the common starling. And it was at a point where there were so many over the city I lived, so I really wanted to work on it. And I added some shine with metallic paints. So yeah, it looks really nice as an original. I almost regretted to have it in the sketchbook and not as a final painting. But yeah, I really liked it. More bird studies, of course. And this was of the Australian white ibis, and that was when I just got back from Australia, and so I was thinking of doing a sculpture of it. And did I do that sculpture? No, but I might. And yeah, this bird is just so fun, so I was just playing around with color combination. Oh, this is really sad. It's when my cat died. She died in November 2022, and I drew her in February. Dudu. She was really old and sick, so I was kind of expecting it, but still, it was heartbreaking, as I'm sure you know if you've ever lived with a pet. On that note, I still haven't drawn Roger, which you know more, the black and white cat, which also died. I don't know. One day I will. And I also sculpted her, and you can see a video about that sculpture on my YouTube channel. But I really like how the drawings ended up. They look really nice. I'm rarely proud of my work, but I'm really proud of those drawings. I think they look... I wouldn't change anything. Yeah, she was such a sweet one. So smart. No, she was not sweet. She was the devil. No, she was not the devil. With us she was sweet, but with the other cats she was kind of like queen cat. But she was so smart. I've never had a cat that was that smart. Here were some studies of a commissioned piece I was asked to do about Alice in Wonderland, and she wanted the piece to be on a book, and so these are the sketches. More bird studies about the white spatula, which you can actually see where I live in fall, but I just like how it looks and how it flies. I used those studies a lot and implemented them in the coloring book specifically. And the last study of the sketchbook is the little egret that we see a lot around here as well, so I just wanted to draw it. I haven't done anything with it. No, I actually did. I did a painting with this one specifically, but no sculptures so far. Birds are not easy to sculpt. It's very rewarding to finish a bird sculpture, but it's very difficult. This one I started just after the pink one from Koval, and it's from Hanemühle. It's also 100% cotton, and I actually really like that sketchbook. The quality is great, it's 100% cotton. It's technically cold pressed, but it's smooth enough to be okay for me. So here are some flower studies using some handmade paints. So again, I bought way too many watercolors, but those are Foresto, which is a small Italian brand, and this is Green Leaf and Blueberry. These I did on my terrace, and these I bought the flowers at the market and painted them. These were studies for another sculpture with a rabbit, but I really liked how they looked, so just added some ribbons. And this was just a quick, fun kind of thing. Just leaves. Oh, color studies. I also did some studies of the decorator crab, which became a sculpture, and I have later in the sketchbook more studies of it because I really wanted to create a sculpture, and some color studies of the legs, etc. before, you know, creating a full-blown sculpture of that. Some magpie studies for another sculpture I did. I don't think I have any video on that one. It was just 3 magpies flying around a plastic bottle. I used some blue ink here and some burnt sienna ink, and I really do like the blue ink. I think it works really nicely. Eurasian nuthatch studies. Also, I was thinking of doing a sculpture but didn't. More bird studies, and this is a small plant, a garden grape hyacinth that when I was walking I saw it, I took a picture, and so I did a study. Typically a sketchbook thing that you never see me work on, portraits. It's my mom and her boyfriend. I'm not interested in portraits, I just like that pictures, I wanted to paint it. And my mom really liked it, so she actually printed it and it's in her room now. More bird studies. Ideas of a flying sea dragon, which maybe I'm going to work on it at some point. It's really cute. Did I buy more watercolors? Yes, I did, and I'm not proud of it. Especially those are not light fast. They have neon in them, which I didn't realize when getting them, but you know, for the sketchbook it's okay. And more bird studies. I really do hope you like bird studies because I feel like that's 90% of this video. This was a small leaf study, and I really wanted to try and see and work on granulating background and play around with gouache, etc. on top of it. So everything is a bit too dark, but I do like it. I think this is quite interesting, and you could implement that specific approach in bigger paintings. I had a great time painting this or drawing this at first. I was watching a documentary about Namibia with my mom. It was around Christmas, and I just started sketching what they were saying in the documentary, and it was great. I should do that more often, to just sit in front of a documentary, not pause it or anything, but just start and sketch things and then come back to it if I need to. Typical fun spread where I just play around with colors, and here I was trying out more surrealistic ideas. Color studies that I made for a painting that I worked on, mangrove, and I ended up using that color study. And this painting was not easy to manage, but I do like how it looks like in the end. This is a tiny study I did when I was working on Bittersweet, which is also on my YouTube channel. And I just wanted to see if I could manage the thing I had in mind to make. It's a detail of a moss. And yeah, in the end I didn't do it quite as big, the moss on the painting, but yeah, it was quite fun to paint it like that. This fun spread was about a flower growing out of my aloe vera. It's on my terrace and suddenly it grew out a flower, and I've never seen a flower at home. So I was so impressed. I really wanted to do something about it, but I just couldn't figure out what to do or how to make it more interesting than just, you know, a sketch. And so I decided that it was perfect material for my sketchbook, and I did this. So I used some granulating watercolor for the background, and then I painted with gouache on top. And here it's all watercolor, and it's a mixture of granulating and then regular watercolor to make the leaves. And I do really like that double page. yeah, I like it. These are some chameleon studies that I use for a chameleon sculpture that I called Moving Pictures on a videotape. And here just some plant studies, some star jasmine. We have actually a lot of star jasmine where I live here, which I'm always surprised by, because for me in my head it's more like a south region thing, and it smells so nice. I love the smell of jasmine. And this is a picture of a Nepenthes, and it's a picture I took at a local shop that would sell Nepenthes, and I love Nepenthes more than anything else. So yeah, I decided to paint it. More bird studies, all from my own pictures that I took locally. Trying out different ink as drawing. Here burnt sienna, which I think works nicely for that bird specifically. And this is a blue crayfish, the Lamington crayfish that is native to Australia. I saw one when I was in Australia. I did some visited tours of the fauna and the forest. I thought about doing sculpture specifically of Australia for a show that was happening in Australia, in the Australian gallery that I work often with. And so yeah, I did that. But I've never ended up sculpting it. And to be honest, drawing it already is quite complicated, but to sculpt that, probably not. Maybe at some point, but... Oh, a bird study. So these were pigeon studies that I used for my Lofi Girl pigeon, which I really liked that sculptures. It sold quite fast, but yeah, which I'm happy about, of course. But yeah, I really like that sculpture. I still like it. It was such a cute sculpture. And just a leaf study. I took this picture of a seagull and I just thought it was so cute how the gull was walking, so I wanted to draw and paint it. And then more recently for the 4-Planet Ocean challenge, I did these cuttlefish studies. I do plan on sculpting one, so kind of both in one, but I just find cuttlefishes fascinating, how they change colors and shapes and do weird shit. Just watch cuttlefish videos on YouTube. It's incredible to see the skin changing so fast and the patterns changing and the colors. It's just such amazing creatures. Okay, this A4 sketchbook I actually bought in London, but I haven't used it all that much. I started to use it somewhere when I got back, so 2020. So these were studies of where I live with graphite, and we did it on site with my boyfriend. Then I did this beautiful page, but I'm not sure why I did it in a sketchbook, but here it is. I now know that some of these colored pencils are actually not light fast, so maybe it's for the better. Because if I had sold it, it might have just faded with time. But yeah, I did this and I really like it. I don't really like this one. I really like leafy sea dragons and I wanted to do a painting, and I wasn't too sure. I think I just wanted to paint that day, and so I did that, but I just don't like what I did with the background. Oh, a color study. Some fish studies that I did until I realized that actually those two are fresh water and those are salted water, so they don't mix, which I realized too late. Of course, I made that mistake, and I made that mistake twice in 2 different artworks. So yeah, now I know, I really know. This was at the time where I got my Game Boy back, and I just drew it. There's nothing more to it. I went with just the shadows and then with colored pencils. Here we have a color study that I did after reading about it, specifically using burnt umber and ultramarine blue, and it was more an oil painting, but it said that with burnt umber, ultramarine blue and white and yellow you can do a lot of mixes, especially sand, so I just wanted to try it out. This is one of the only neo-pastel sketches and doodles I did, complete with scratching. It's actually not bad, but yeah, I think I just don't really like that specific medium. And here we have some parrotfish studies. I quite like how they look on that very dark background. And this is an interesting part of my sketchbook. At that time, I was trying to draw with my left hand, so this has been done with my left hand. I'm right-handed. If you've been following me, you might remember that I had a nerve inflammation in my dominant hand and I could just not use it. And so I was really trying to work with my left hand. And so this was a mug drawn with my left hand. This was also done with my left hand, and it was inspired from some Aboriginal art. And I just wanted to kind of recreate those abstract shape. And I did watch a lot of Netflix at that time, and I saw Incantation, which I really enjoyed. And again, this is all done with my left hand, and it was not easy to paint with my left hand. A bird, but in a surrealistic style for a change. This is one of those Royal Talent sketchbooks that everyone loves. I don't, because I don't like the paper. I think it's too yellowish. But I bought it to try it out, and I used it a lot to take notes. I'm going to flip quickly through it. It's mostly notes of work, but I'm going to show you a bit different things. So this was when I had just bought the Turner acrylic gouache. And I did this small painting with the Turner acrylic gouache, and I really like it. I think it looks great. But then I have an obsession with lichen, so obviously it makes sense I would like it. But I think it's really not bad. So most of it is just text and quick doodles. But these here are actual studies of caterpillars. And at that time I was working on the idea of disposable pencils. A lot of this sketchbook is very quick colored pencil doodles like this one. And here I just had ideas to do pencils, but like trees, or maybe dangling vines, but that would be cables. This is a spread that I quite like about the Sumatran tiger, and I used colored pencils to draw it. And I was so close to make a sculpture out of it, coming out of a book. But yeah, I didn't manage, and yeah, it's just living in my sketchbook. But I really enjoyed making these studies, and I might actually at some point do a sculpture. So we will see. Sometimes it's not that bad to not work on your ideas right away, because then you have something to look at when you are lacking of ideas and just looking through your sketchbook. Typical doodle dump. This year was when I was working out ideas for my coloring book. So at first the book was supposed to be square, and then we changed it into another format. But yeah, I was just kind of getting out all the ideas I could, because that coloring book was really filled with a lot of pages. Some cute hedgehog studies that I was working on while I was brainstorming for a sculpture. And I made this sculpture on a book with the hedgehog and a tiny hair out of it. A relaxing doodle with a lot of ideas for my sketchbook. So this one ended up in the sketchbook. It's the Brandenburger Tor, which is in Berlin. And then I also did a sketch of my desk that also ended up in my coloring book. More ideas for my coloring book at that time. A quick doodle for a sculpture I had in mind that I ended up doing, which was about the magpies flying around a plastic bottle with roots. Quite like that sculpture. The next one is also Royal Talents one. However, this one is white in color, so I like it much better, and it's my current in use. As you can see, it's mostly empty, but I do have a few things to show you. So this is a spread about owls, and I was working on my Arch Enemy Arts solo show at that time. So this is when I got the idea of making an owl onto binoculars, and then I just did some owl studies, especially for the wings. I do like to make a lot of studies for the wings before starting the sculpting. In that case, I did make the wing out of paper and some other ideas. These are 2 pages of brainstorming an idea for the Year of the Dragon show, which was at Modern Eden Gallery. Basically, I did a dragon on a book, and so I was just trying to make it work, and so the dragon actually transforms into a dragonfly. So yeah, it was a fun idea. I liked working on that one. On Instagram, I saw some posts about hermit crabs in empty plastic caps, and mostly in Okinawa in Japan. And so I drew one because I wanted to make a sculpture, but I haven't gotten to it. And these are tortoise studies that I made for a sculpture that I called The World, which was inspired by the great Atun myth. And I actually have a YouTube video about that sculpture on my YouTube channel. I really loved working on these studies. I did play around with very different styles. And then, of course, I had to think about how to build the sculpture up. But I had a lot of fun drawing the tortoise from all angles, mostly with colored pencils and some ink. I find it very useful to do studies from all the sides, so I have a really good grasp on how it looks before I start sculpting. It really helps me to figure out how to make the sculpture and also to just get the shapes in my head. Some elephant studies, because I was needing to study elephants for my sculpture of the tortoise with the turtles on top. I wanted to work on some water bottles and I just did some color studies with those, specifically with metallic watercolors. I was really into that at that point. A small polar bear study without any kind of reference, just for fun. Here I was really brainstorming ideas for my arch enemy solo show. Though I ended up using the camera for the Beinart solo show. This is where I figured out how to use an old clock I found at a thrift market by transforming it into a snail, and this turned out to be a really great sculpture. A very typical working page where I have a lot of writing and some quick doodles here and there, just kind of brainstorming ideas. Here I was starting to learn Korean. I was learning the alphabet. Some really cool snake studies that I used to create a sculpture of a snake. I really enjoyed working on that one and on the sculpture as well, because I kind of simplified the shape. I didn't work the texture that much, but I really focused on painting the pattern and I had a lot of fun. I really want to do another snake sculpture in the future. Some small squid studies, some small bird studies among color studies. These were color studies of the narwhal that I did as a sculpture, trying to figure out how I wanted it to be. This is a no reference sketch, just for fun really. And here a few drawings. This was actually from reference from my Christmas tree at that time. And the last sketchbook, which is ongoing, I bought this one during my art residency in Busan. It's an A3 and it's watercolor paper, or they say it's for poster color. I have no clue if it's acid-free. I was unable to find that information online, but I like it. This was a super fun spread that I did while watching a documentary. So it was a BBC documentary about the underwater world and I was just pausing, taking notes, painting what I was finding interesting. So we have the Sally Lightfoot crab, then we have the cuttlefish, hypnotizing crabs and changing appearances. I can only recommend that you watch documentaries and pause and do pictures of them. This here was about the clownfish and how the male takes care of the eggs. And I did a lot of writing as well. And this here is the sex-shifting fish kobudai, which I thought was so fascinating. So I also drew it. And then of course we have a puffin, which is absolutely adorable. At that moment I was still in South Korea, but I was trying to figure out what to do for the Lost World project, the art magazine, and so this was an idea which I didn't do in the end. And this is where the Ulsan picture started, so I started doodling it in this sketchbook. I made a watercolor paint that you can see on my YouTube channel, and right now I'm working with oils on that same subject, just because I'm still not content with what I have done. Here I was trying to figure out what is now this, so a tiny foldable zine of the paintings I did during my art residency, which are on my website. It's a limited edition and it's actually pretty cheap. I do a lot of colored pencil studies about the landscapes that I want to do to try and see how I want them. This is a spread of a study of the albatross, painting that I also recently finished, and yeah, I did a lot of studies before diving into that one. And here, close up of the albatross. So these were all the sketchbooks that I have either finished or I'm still working on. I really hope you found this interesting and maybe insightful. If you watched until now, please leave a book emoji in the comments down below. It greatly helps the algorithm and it makes me so happy to see all these little emojis. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my next video. And don't forget to order my book on pre-sales. Thank you so much. Bye!